They fined me for saving rainwater, so I built a waterfall that flooded their lawn. Karen stood on her porch, the fine notice crumpled in her fist. $500 for collecting rainwater in barrels behind her shed. The HOA's letter cited community standards and environmental concerns, but to her, it was personal. The Thompsons next door, with their perfect lawn and smug superiority, had reported her. She'd seen Ellen Thompson smirk at the last neighborhood meeting, heard the whispers about unsightly barrels. Karen wasn't just a gardener. She was a survivor. After losing her job during the recession, her backyard oasis built on sweat and stubborn hope kept her grounded. Those barrels fed her roses, her tomatoes, her soul. Now the HOA wanted to drain that too. She wasn't one to beg. At 47, Karen had weathered worse divorce, debt, the slow erosion of dreams. But this fine felt like a slap, a public shaming for daring to live differently. She stared at the barrels, their chipped blue paint gleaming under the morning sun, and felt a spark ignite. If they wanted to control water, she'd give them water. More than they could handle. Karen spent weeks planning. She sold her old TV, bought pipes, a pump, and a second-hand fountainhead from a junkyard. She worked at night, digging trenches in her backyard, her hands blistered but steady. The Thompsons' complaints had always been about appearances. Her wildflowers were unkempt, her compost bin an eyesore. Fine. She'd make something they couldn't ignore. The day of the reveal, Karen flipped the switch. Water roared from the makeshift waterfall she'd built against the fence. A glorious cascade that spilled over into the Thompsons' yard. Their pristine lawn, their pride and joy, turned to mud in minutes. Ellen screamed from her patio, her voice shrill over the rush of water. "You're insane, Karen. You'll pay for this." Her husband, Tom, stormed to the fence, his face purple. "This is vandalism. We'll sue." Karen stood tall, arms crossed, her graying hair damp from the mist. "You fine me for saving water. I'm just sharing it now." The crowd gathering on the street gasped, phones raised, recording the chaos. Some cheered, others muttered about property values. The water kept flowing, relentless, a symbol of Karen's defiance. But then came the twist. Among the onlookers was Mrs. Delaney, the quiet widow from 2 houses down. She shuffled forward, her cane tapping the pavement, and raised a trembling hand. "I reported you, Karen," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The crowd stilled. Karen's heart sank. Mrs. Delaney, who'd brought her soup during her divorce, who'd shared stories of her late husband's garden. "I didn't mean harm," Mrs. Delaney continued, tears in her eyes. "The HOA pressured me, said your barrels were a health risk. I was scared they'd find me next." Karen's anger faltered. She saw not malice but fear in Mrs. Delaney's face, fear of losing her home, her place in this rigid community. The Thompsons, still shouting, seemed smaller now, their outrage a mask for their own compliance. Karen had aimed her waterfall at them. But the real enemy was the system that pitted neighbor against neighbor, turning rainwater into a crime. The police arrived, sirens cutting through the tension. The HOA president, a wiry man named Greg, followed, waving another fine. "You've gone too far, Karen," he said, his voice dripping with authority. "This is destruction of property." Karen didn't flinch. "It's my water," she said. "You can't fine me for gravity." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others shaking their heads. The waterfall roared on, a defiant hymn. Days later, the fallout was brutal. The Thompsons sued. The HOA doubled down, threatening eviction. Karen's savings dwindled on legal fees, and her garden wilted under the stress. She dismantled the waterfall, the pipes now silent in her shed. But the neighborhood wasn't the same. Mrs. Delaney left cookies on Karen's porch with a note. "I'm sorry. You were right." Others started whispering about the HOA's overreach, about water rights, about freedom. Karen's act, reckless and raw, had cracked the facade of their perfect suburb. One evening, Karen sat on her porch, staring at the muddy scar where her waterfall had been. She'd lost the battle, her bank account was empty, her spirit bruised. But she'd gained something too. A spark of rebellion in the neighbors who'd watched in silence. The Thompsons' lawn would recover. But their pride? That was drowned. Karen smiled faintly, her heart heavy but unbroken. She'd paid a price, but so had they. The bitter truth lingered. Her fight wasn't just against the Thompsons or the HOA, it was against a community that valued conformity over compassion, rules over reason. She wondered if she'd gone too far or not far enough. What do you think? Was Karen's rebellion justice, or did it cross a line? Share your thoughts on where defiance meets destruction.